Good afternoon. The time is now 6 p.m. and I'd like to call to order the October 17th, 2023 school board meeting for the North Thurston Public Schools. I'd like to initiate roll call starting with District 2, please.
Tiffany Severick.
District 3, Jennifer Thomas.
District 4, Graham Sackerson.
District 5, Dave Newkirk.
District 1, Gretchen Maliska. If you would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that North Thurston Public Schools resides on the traditional lands of the Nisqually people. The Nisqually have lived on and cared for this land and these waterways since time immemorial. We make this acknowledgement to open a space of recognition, inclusion, and respect for our sovereign tribal partners and all Indigenous students, families, and staff in our community. You may be seated. Dr. Clemens, do we have any correspondence or additions to the agenda? No. Great. Next, we have the adoption of the agenda. This is an action item. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move adoption.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion is carried. And next, I'd like to invite Sarah Rich to begin our community conversation. As well, our panelists, if they would please join us up front. Sorry, we displaced you for just a moment. Actually, this part's me again. I'll get it right at some point, I promise. So good evening, and thank you all for being here. As Dr. Clemens said tonight, we're really thankful as board members to have a community conversation where we can listen to you as board members, and then we've invited several of our community members. We will be discussing strong readers tonight. This topic is connected to our strategic plan, Goal 4, continuous growth, all students, all subjects. Every student will demonstrate continuous growth towards meeting or exceeding rigorous learning standards. Outcome B, which is increased growth rate at a minimum of 1 year for students at or above grade level, and 1.5 years for students below grade level in math and English language arts. There is a focus on closing opportunity gaps and connection to our focus on equity. Reading is a crucial skill that will open doors for students regardless of their future path. And this district is embarking on a new elementary reading adoption soon, and we want to maximize our investment by selecting high-quality materials that students and teachers will love engaging with. I would like to share the structure of the evening. We have 2 presentations, a brief video to bring some student voice into the evening, and 5 panelists who will share their perspectives, and then time for table conversations with all of you. I would like to introduce Tammy Alonzo, our Director of Student Information and Intervention Systems, to get us started.
Good evening. Thank you, President Maliska, board members, and Superintendent Clemens, and thank you to all the community members for joining us tonight. I'd like to share with you how our district makes decisions to support our students and what our data is currently showing regarding K-5 reading achievement in our district. The Washington State Multi-Tiered Systems of Support Framework is a set of recommended strategies for closing educational opportunity gaps, which support a school-based approach to promoting the success of all students. The goal of the framework is to fulfill a vision of public education where educators focus on education, students focus on learning, and auxiliary supports enable teaching and learning to occur unimpeded. The essential components of the MTSS framework are interrelated. Teams share the responsibility of making decisions that are driven by high-quality data collected over time from multiple sources. Teams engage families, students, and community partners to plan, implement, and improve services. Staff and community partners provide a continuum of supports to students through a tiered delivery system, starting with a strong core instruction. Staff use evidence-based practices to accelerate student learning across all tiers. In North Thurston, the way that we apply our MTSS system to our K-5 reading achievement is that we use evidence-based practices when implementing our core reading curriculum, Reach for Reading. Grade-level pacing guides have been created outlining for staff how to best teach the content. Our ELA department is currently providing science of reading and writing, professional development for staff to engage our educators in learning about the most recent research around how students learn to read and write in preparation for our upcoming curriculum adoption that you'll hear more about tonight. We also provide a continuum of supports for our students who may need additional instruction to master the concepts of reading. Our district-level instructional coaches support teachers in the classroom on best practices to adjust core instruction to meet the needs of all students. Our Title and Learning Assistance programs, or LAP, provide daily targeted small group instruction for struggling readers. We're also in the third year of utilizing our federal ESSER COVID fund relief funds to provide before and after school interventions for students through a program we call Power Up. We monitor student outcomes and use a variety of data sources in our decision making. A few of those include the MTSSR Foundational Reading Skills Study, which you'll hear more about shortly. Our main assessment data that are considered as we watch for trends over time district-wide are our EasyCBM benchmark assessments given to all K-5 students each fall, winter, and spring, as well as our state Smarter Balanced assessments. Analyzing the data and watching for trends over time helps us to determine if what we're teaching is resulting in positive outcomes for students. And finally, in the MTSSR structure, we want to partner with families in the community to help foster a love of reading for our children. We value our relationships with community organizations who help support events like Battle of the Books and Lacey Loves to Read. We're also building our Reading Boosters program, which facilitates bringing community volunteers into our schools to read with students individually. Our schools have Kiwanis lending libraries where students can take home books to read with the vision that all students have access to books anytime, any day. Much of this work is supported by the community partnerships such as South Sound Reading Foundation. So in looking carefully at our data, we're mindful of different opportunity gaps that need more attention. One gap we're currently focused on in our school improvement planning is our students' socioeconomic status. We notice on this graph that we have 82.3% of our non-low-income students reading at grade level on last spring's EasyCBM assessment. However, when we look at the same data for our low-income students, we have an average of 67.1% of students reading at grade level. This data leads us to further explore why this gap may be happening and how we can better support our students with early intervention and wraparound supports. On last spring's Smarter Balanced reading assessment for English language arts, we see a wide variety of the percentage of students meeting grade level standards based on race. This is another opportunity gap that we're examining further to try to understand how to best meet the needs of all students. But here's some good news. There's been ongoing concern about how COVID has impacted students' learning loss and many discussions about how to best address this learning loss moving forward. I'm happy to report some good news for our youngest students. In the spring of 2019, before COVID, we had 72% of our kindergartners and first graders reading at grade level, with 16% of students showing some risk and 12% indicating high risk for falling behind their peers. During COVID, as expected, the 2021 school year began with remote learning, and we adjusted to hybrid learning for the second semester of that school year. From the spring Easy CBM in 2021, we see a dramatic drop in our on-grade level numbers from 72 down to 57%, resulting in a notable increase of our some risk and high risk groups. But looking at our data from last spring, we're happy to see that we're back at our pre-COVID numbers. For students reading at grade level, 72%, and we're performing slightly better than we did before COVID, as we have a record low number of 8% of students in the high risk category. So with all the supports we have in place and the MTSSR study concluding this year, we're expecting to see this year's spring numbers show even better results. Thank you. Now we have Allison coming to tell us some more information about the MTSSR study.
So it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Allison Gandhi. She's here from the American Institute for Research, or AIR. We appreciate you joining us this evening. Dr. Gandhi is Vice President leading the Learning Support Program area of AIR. In her role, she oversees project quality, human capital resource allocation, and business development for a portfolio of work focused on early childhood, English learners, special education, and multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS. Currently, Dr. Gandhi is the Deputy Director that leads recruitment and implementation oversight activities for large-scale national impacts evaluation of MTSS and reading, funded by the Institute of Educational Sciences, IES. She is also the principal investigator on an IES-funded grant to develop and validate a rubric to measure implementations of integration, MTSS, and project director for an IES-funded project to design a national special education spending study. Dr. Gandhi has published and presented extensively on the topic of MTSS and evidence-based practices in special education. She holds a master's degree in public policy from Georgetown University and a doctoral degree in education policy from Harvard University. Please share a welcome of Dr. Gandhi.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I am really honored and grateful to be here tonight for this really important conversation, community conversation you all are having about growing strong readers. So again, I'm Allison Gandhi. So I'm representing American Institutes for Research. This is the organization that is conducting this study that I'll talk about on behalf of the U.S. Department of Education. North Thurston is one of 8 districts around the country that's participating. And I wanted just to start with a little context which is that this study is multi-million-dollar, multi-year. It is actually the largest study that the U.S. Department of Education has ever funded of this kind. So it's a major priority for them, really exciting for us to be able to conduct it, and exciting for North Thurston to be able to participate. So I just wanted to start, first of all, by thanking the district and the community for participating in it, because it's not only helping you all in your efforts to improve reading, but you are contributing to this national knowledge base that we're developing about MTSS and how MTSS can impact reading outcomes for young kids. So with that, just wanted to start with the purpose of the study. So the purpose is to provide high-quality professional development and support for elementary schools to implement MTSS for reading, what we call MTSSR, and then evaluate the impact that that has on teacher instructional practice and student literacy outcomes just in grades 1 and 2. So we're just focused on grades 1 and 2 for this study. And the motivation for funding the study from the Department of Education is really twofold. One is, unfortunately, what we all know is persistently poor reading outcomes among our youngest learners. And we know that national data are showing that about 1/3 of students are not proficient readers by grade 4, and that has real consequences, right, for lifelong success. We know that if you're not proficient reader by grade 4, you're more likely to, drop out of school, face unemployment later in life, interact with the criminal justice system, all of those things, and so it's a real concern. The second motivation is to learn more about MTSS. This is a really popular, growing practice that has gained a lot of support from states, from districts, but what we know from research is that it's really hard to implement well, and it really only is effective if it's implemented well. And so the study, part of the purpose is to understand what does it take to implement it well, and what are the conditions under which it can be effective. So with that, we have 3 main evaluation goals. The first is to determine whether 2 different MTSSR strategies, and I'll talk about the 2 strategies in a minute, but whether these 2 different strategies have positive impacts on instructional practice and student literacy outcomes, again, just grades 1 and 2. Second, to understand whether these strategies can be implemented with fidelity when there's appropriate training provided. So again, sort of what does it take? What kinds of training is needed? And third is to assess the cost and the cost effectiveness of MTSSR. We're in 8 districts, as I mentioned, and the total number of schools is 122 elementary schools across these 8 districts. So I wanted to come back and start with MTSSR and really what we mean by that. And so this schema, I guess, this graphic shows the 4 core components of MTSSR that we are testing in this study and that we're providing support on. So I'll walk through each box. On the left is Tier 1 instruction. So that really just refers to high quality core reading instruction in the general classroom for all kids. And so we want to make sure there, first of all, that the content is covering those 5 big domains of reading that we know are so critical from the research, so phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary comprehension. But then also a real focus of this study is to make sure that teachers are delivering that content using explicit and systematic instructional strategies and data-based differentiated instruction as well. So that's your Tier 1. Over on the right, we have the Tier 2 interventions. So that's supplemental small group interventions, so it's 30 minutes every day for students who have been identified as struggling to meet those expectations in the Tier 1 instruction. It's really important that this is supplemental. It's not instead of that Tier 1 instruction, it's in addition to that. So that's your Tier 2 intervention. And then the middle box is the assessment. This is a data-based framework, so it's really important to constantly be using data to drive decisions that you're making about instruction. So for this study, it's important that you are using psychometrically valid assessments, which you all do in this district using EasyCBM. And there's 2 purposes for that. One is to identify on a regular basis who are the students who are showing signs of risk and could benefit from that Tier 2 intervention. And then second is to monitor the progress of the students who are receiving that Tier 2 intervention. So those are the 3 boxes on the top, and on the bottom is what we call infrastructure, and that's really the people and the procedures that make this all work. And for this study, that means first having a team. Every school needs to have an MTSSR team. They do things like look at the data, identify which students should be put into Tier 2 intervention, make decisions about moving kids in and out of tiers, and just general oversight over the implementation of this model. And then the other piece, because we know that staff need ongoing support for this to work well, is to have a local coach. So the study has funded, for the past 3 years, the position of a local MTSSR coach that goes in the schools that are participating once a week to work with the staff and the teams on implementing the model. So that's the model, that's what we're implementing. Wanted to just back up quick and just remind everyone that this is very much in alignment. As I mentioned before, MTSS is a framework that is supported, I'm pretty sure, by every state, including Washington, and some of the recent legislation around reading. It's very much aligned with what is required at the state level. Evidence-based approaches to reading, high-quality professional development, universal screening for all kids. So coming back, I mentioned before we're testing 2 different strategies to MTSSR. It is a common framework, but there are different thoughts about how to implement it best and what might be most effective at achieving outcomes. So because we're testing 2 strategies, we have 2 different external organizations that are providing the training and supports. And these are groups that we selected them through a national competition. They come with very strong reputations, demonstrated track records of conducting that high quality professional development on evidence-based approaches to MTSS. So the first on the left, it's a group called Enhanced Core Reading Instruction, or ECRI. They are run by a partnership between Boston University and the Center on Teaching and Learning at University of Oregon. Then on the right is the second group. They are called Core Partners. It is a partnership between the Consortium on Reaching Excellence in Education and a group at the University of Minnesota. And they both provide PD and support on all those 4 core components of MTSSR that I talked about, but they have slight differences in their approaches to Tiers 1 and Tier 2, which I'll talk about next. So I'll talk about ECRI first. So what ECRI does, they have a fairly unique approach. They have developed a set of what they call instructional routines. They're essentially scripted lessons that operate as a direct overlay onto the core program that you're already using. So in North Thurston, you use Reach for Reading. Essentially, teachers are given a set of these lessons, scripted lessons, that align directly with the scope and sequence of that curriculum. And they're built into those lessons are those explicit and systematic instruction techniques that I talked about earlier. So in a sense, it's fairly prescribed. It should make it, in theory, easy for the teachers to make sure they're implementing those strategies along the scope and sequence of the curriculum. That happens in Tier 1. In Tier 2, what happens is that whoever's providing that Tier 2 intervention is going to actually pre-teach the students with those same exact routines that they're going to be exposed to in Tier 1, and they do it the day before or with some schedule of pre-teaching. And the theory there is that the students who are struggling are getting exposed to that routine in advance so that they're ready when they get exposed to it in Tier 1, and they're getting exposed to it twice, so they get that extra practice. So the theory with ECRI is really that close alignment of Tier 1 and Tier 2 and those prescribed routines. With Core Partners, I would say this is a more typical approach with MTSS. Of course, all the teachers are using their core reading program, Reach for Reading, but they won't have that same level of prescription with the routines. They definitely have sample lessons to work from. They have a teaching reading source book. They get lots of training and support, and they're learning deeply about the science of reading. But this approach relies a little more on the professional judgment of the teachers and the training they're getting rather than, scripted lessons for every day. And then for Tier 2, they're implementing sort of an off-the-shelf commercial evidence-based program. It's got lots of evidence behind it called Sound Partners to really work with those students who need that extra support. So that's the difference between the two approaches. And the screening and progress monitoring and the infrastructure, that is the same for both providers and both organizations. So this is a research study, and again, we're so grateful that North Thurston agreed to participate in this. It's a lottery study design. So what that means is when we first met with district leaders back, it was 2020 prior to COVID. We had to delay a year, but in 2021, we had 13 schools, sign up to participate, and then they were randomly assigned to 3 conditions. So a third of the schools are assigned to be business as usual, which just means they continue with whatever they would normally do for their early reading instruction. A third of the schools assigned to receive that training from ECRI, and a third of the schools to receive that training from Core Partners. And this is just, I'll keep this up for just a second, but this is the schools that have been assigned to each of the groups. And then regardless of what group the schools are in, there's some expectations for participation in the study. So all schools have participated in data collection activities, which is what we need to learn from the study. And then the schools that are participating in the MTSSR groups, they participate in certain training and support activities. So for the training and supports, this is what it has looked like for the past 3 years, the past 2 years, and going into this final year. Summer training every year, a little bit of fall training on some specific topics. And then during the year, there have been, from our training providers, 4 site visits on site and then monthly virtual supports. And then at a local level, that coach, who is a staff person here in North Thurston, visits the schools every week. This final year, we did the summer training. There will continue to be site visits and virtual supports, but it will be at a reduced level because now we're at the point where the goal is really to build that capacity in North Thurston for you all to be able to continue to implement after the study is over. And then these are the data collection activities which we are doing for the study purposes. We've been conducting surveys every spring of all the staff. We did 1 round of classroom observations last spring, and then we have been following a cohort of two cohorts of first graders as they go through first and second grade, testing them at certain intervals. We will follow those cohorts after the study until fifth grade, just looking at their state test scores just to see if any effects are sustained over time. And that's the overview of the study, and I really look forward to hearing any feedback or questions about it. But again, just wanted to thank you all. I think this has been a great opportunity for North Thurston to get this kind of training at no cost to the district, really intensive supports, and try out these different models, see what really works, and hopefully build on that for future success. So thank you.
So we wanted to bring student voice into this conversation without making students stay from 6 to 8 in an adult-oriented event. So some of our very generous principals and teachers took some informal interview clips of some of our students, and as a not professional videographer, I put them together. So my apologies for the rough cuts here, but I think it's important to hear from the students themselves about why learning to read is important.
Reading is important because people will not always help you read something. You have to learn to read, so that way when they tell you to read something in front of them, you can read good.
Awesome, thank you. The best thing about being a reader.
It's actually fun because when you're in pre-K or in different type of schools, you used to struggle, and now you get to read other hard words that you used to struggle with.
When I came to this school, I knew only a little bit of English, and it was hard, but I started working on it, and I got better at it, and I got better at English, and reading really helped because I read books that were in English, and it came to me how to speak English, and then I got better and better at it.
So, Amina, how about you? What does it feel like to you as you've improved your skills as a reader and writer?
It feels amazing, and since I've been taking these extra classes, I've improved a lot, and I like reading now.
You do? Marie, do you like reading too?
Yes, it's amazing because if you see something that says a word, you can you know what it says, and that's really cool to me.
So when you're out and about in the community, what's it like to know how to read the things around you? Do you want to talk about that, Amina or Marie?
Yes.
Yeah, what's that like?
It's really, really cool to me. You know what it says, and it's really awesome.
JJ, you've grown so much as a reader. What does it feel like to improve your skills as a reader?
It feels great to be reading, and my grandma has shown me how I can do this, and to keep, she says, read. If you can't read the word, you have to read the whole paragraph. I think reading is really important because it really helps me. If we're doing something and you need to read to understand it, I think that really helps. And when I was younger, I moved to Ecuador and learned how to read in Ecuador, and I came back here, and I went back to Ecuador, and I came back here, and it was kind of hard for me, but now I know how to read in both languages. Thank you. Reading is important to me because so that I can read all different kinds of books, and also close. So when I grow up, I can read signs and tells you and like if stuff is closed, not closed, and also because I'm interested in being a teacher when I grow up, and that's all.
Like I know all the answers that my teacher that we learned about in here because we already learned about it, and I'm just going back to class and doing the same thing again. So I would already know the stuff when they call on me to like read this word,
And how did that make you feel inside that you were prepared?
like happy and joyful.
So, yeah, it was sweet. I don't know if you could hear the little boy sitting next to that last student, because as soon as he said, I know how to answer, he said, same. I just think it's so sweet. So I just want to say special thanks to Becky Lee, Sarah Steinman, Colleen Miller, and Aaron Zeitlin for giving me those clips, and the readers at Summit and Seven Oaks and Meadows. Thanks very much. Okay, and I believe at this point we are going to turn it over to Board Member Severick for our panelist conversation.
We will be asking our panel a series of questions, and I ask our panel to limit their answers to 5 minutes. Panelists, would you please introduce yourself and state the name of the organization you represent?
My name is Raina Sidor, and I'm here from the Timberland Regional Library, specifically the Lacey and Hawkesbury branches.
I'm Jamie Roberts, and I'm the Director of ELA Social Studies and Library Programs in North Thurston.
I'm Amy Richardson. I am the principal at Woodland Elementary.
And I'm Jennifer Williamson Forster, Executive Director of the South Sound Reading Foundation.
Our first question is for Jennifer. Please talk to us about mission and vision of the role of the South Sound Reading Foundation. How do you partner with schools in the district in this work?
Thanks, and thanks for having me here tonight. And I want to shout out to Lynn, my coworker in crime. The Reading Foundation really exists to support schools and students in getting and building better readers in partnership with our community. And the Reading Foundation does this by educating families about the importance of reading. So those of you who have seen us out in the community giving presentations at family education nights or literacy nights or at parent ed classes, we're there talking to families about why reading is so important, how to help your kids become a stronger reader. So we're educating families, which we believe is the core to a strong reader. But we're also, and that part of that is our Books for Babies program. So anybody that's born in our area, when they leave the hospital with their newborns, they get a free book, a brand new board book, along with literacy materials about reading and the importance of reading and various resources in the community. But we also are not just educating families, we're providing reading engagement programming, which we're gearing up again post-pandemic or in this pandemic-ish world. And that's getting readers into early learning centers to do story times and then providing free books for kids. And then also reading engagement programming also involves before and after school programming. We were doing a lot of that before the pandemic. So story times at early learning centers, but also book talks and book clubs at before and after school programming, and then any kind of activity that can get kids excited about reading and exploring the world through reading. But what we're most known for, let's face it, is our free books for kids. And we have our book van, which we just got back, a whole nother story there. But that's out in the community providing free books to kids. And that's at the Boys and Girls Club, after school programs, before school programs, community events, a lot of open houses. We were at a lot of your open houses this fall. Then we have our Bag of Books program, which we did start at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's still running strong, and families are able to order books per kid, 4 books per kid per month, not by title, but by area of interest and reading level. And then we're working with various partners to make sure those families have access to the books. And literacy bookshelves, so we have bookshelves throughout the community, especially in areas that are serving lower income families, so that families have access to books that they can take and keep. And that part of that partnership is the wonderful partnership that Lynn and the Kiwanis have developed with North Thurston to do the Little Freer libraries where kids have access to books at any time, which is pretty important. And I did a little research today, and this last year we gave over 23,500 books to North Thurston kids and their families. And the reason, to me, this is so important and to supporting readers is that those books are going into the hands of kids. The kids are either picking out those books themselves, or they're picking out the books in partnership with an instructor, a teacher, or a parent. So those books are kids that are naturally interested in and excited about reading. And when you think about motivational reading, that's key, right? It's finding books that the kids are really excited about reading. It's actually generating intrinsically motivated reading. So, and that, as we know, promotes reading comprehension. Because if you're excited about the book, and if you're excited about the content, you're going to read that book. We also provide once a month, we do have a teacher resource day. So families can, teachers can come and pick out resources for their schools, their classrooms, and we do open up some books for them to take back to build their own libraries in their classrooms. So overall, we support all that North Thurston does to create stronger readers by providing access to free books and literacy programming, getting kids excited to explore and learn through reading, and collectively our goal is to improve reading proficiency and educational outcomes for all of our kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we have a couple of questions for our Timberland Public Library panelists. Please talk about the supports that Timberland Library provides for young people, such as programs to get children into the library and engaged with books. How do the libraries support and partner with schools?
Sure, there's lots of different ways that we partner with schools. Timberland Regional Library covers 5 different counties with 29 different locations now. We're a public library, publicly funded, and so we have lots of different things available. And most of what the public usually thinks of when you think of a library is, of course, the buildings, but of course there's a lot of online stuff as well that a lot of kids and families really appreciate taking advantage of. Right now, our strategic direction focuses on 3 things: the local communities, which we have a very broad range of local communities in these 5 counties of region. We also focus on the EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion practices. And we also focus on birth to 5. So we do spend a lot of time focusing on the early learners, really trying to set kids up for success. We, at the Lacey location, we have 4 different story times a week. There's a baby-focused story time. We have an open kaleidoscope play group that we do with the Child Care Action Council every Wednesday. On Fridays, we're doing a toddler-focused story time just for those 2-year-olds. And then we also have a preschool family story time on Saturdays in the mornings. So those are opportunities for kids to connect with each other and learn some really important social emotional skills, as well as building their literacy skills and kind of seeing other contexts out in their community. It's also an opportunity for us to connect with caregivers and parents to give them the tools to be able to build their reading culture into their families. We do lots of different things to try to build in reading as a regular thing in our communities. Every summer, we do something called the Summer Library Program, where we invite families to come into the library and get an activity sheet, and they can learn about lots of different activities that can build your brain. Everything from playing a board game to going on a walk in the woods to reading a book is absolutely an option, listening to a book. And those, they get a free book just for signing up for the activities. They get free books all throughout, because of course the public library does have a lot of free activities also. We also get out in the community a lot. We come out to the schools and do presentations throughout the year about the important stuff that the library has, because one of the most important things to me is to make sure that kids know that the library has stuff that they want and friendly people who can help connect them with that. So we try to talk about the library in language that kids will understand at age-appropriate levels, and talk about upcoming events that are happening at the library. We were just talking about an author event that's coming up. We host lots of different craft activities, different STEM-focused things. We have a Caterpillar kids can play with in the library. There's a light table in the toy section. There's a lot of different kinds of things to make the environment a place that kids are going to want to come, where there's a dedicated teen space specifically for middle school and high school students, that nobody else can use the computers over there, because we want it to be a place where people just want to hang out when you do come to the library. We recently opened the Hawks Prairie branch. It's been open for almost 2 years now, which is over kind of by Costco in the and that's a much smaller library, but we've seen a lot of popularity. There's a lot of people using that space. We have free printing available, which I know some teachers take advantage of sometimes, because of that you get free color, black and white printing at the library, as well as internet usage and Wi-Fi and all of those things that you might expect. We also do programs out in the community. For example, we do a neurodivergent kids book club at the Sensory Tool House, specifically for families with neurodivergent kids, and it's been really popular. We've had a waiting list for that ever since it started. It's been a great opportunity to connect out with other community groups. We visit the Head Starts as well with our Anywhere Library group. Anywhere Library is a program where we've got a staff member that just takes the library out in the community. They have a van full of books and giveaways, and they can set people up with library accounts. If you have a hold on something, which means you've got you're on a waiting list for a particular book, they can deliver it to one of the sites where they've got a regular visit. And we're getting out to the more far regions of Thurston County with that program. We also are about to roll out our new website for the library system, and it's the same type of website as like the KCLS or Seattle kind of region libraries have. It's got some cool social media features that I think a lot of kids are really going to get into with parental permission. They can rate books, they can put comments or little mini reviews on books and kind of make it more of an interactive community experience. You can create book lists of all of your favorite books on a particular topic and make those public if you want to. There's going to be a lot of really fun things that I think we're all going to enjoy playing with. Of course, did you already want me to talk about the second question too? Partner with schools? Yeah, I could talk for a while. 5 minutes? Okay. I want to make sure to talk about Lacey Loves to Read. That's a big thing that we do with the city and the school district, where we bring in a major author every February and have a wealth of different opportunities to meet that author, to celebrate reading in a lot of different forms. We also have MyTRL, which is a partnership with the schools where every student automatically gets an account with the library that lets them have access to all of our online holdings. They can read ebooks for free on their Chromebooks from school with MyTRL card. So that really broadens the wealth of different kinds of books that they can read. I meet regularly with all of the library teachers from all the schools, and keeping that communication pathway open is a really critical part of staying connected with all of the schools in NTPS and communicating about what's going on in our areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Raina. Okay, next we'd like to ask Jamie. We know that you're starting the work of an elementary reading adoption. What have you been doing to get ready for that? Could you talk to us about the adoption process? How will the district ensure that you are selecting the best quality materials and implementing them well?
So let me start with the first one. Yes, we have started an adoption process. Good if I turn this on. Is that better? We are excited about starting it, and so excited I forget to turn the mic on. So the ELA team started last year with conversations about how do we prepare for this. This is a big deal when we talk about an elementary literacy adoption. It's big. And so we thought, we've got to start developing our background knowledge, not only ours, but also that across our system. So we started out, several of us directors and instructional specialists, we spent last year learning about the science of reading, you might have heard that, and evidence-based practices. We wanted to make sure that we could share that with the staff, so we were meeting in doing book clubs and podcasts and trying to build our knowledge about the science of reading, which, for those of you that maybe haven't heard of that, it's been floating around a lot lately, but it is based on the culmination of multiple fields of research that have been conducted over 50 years and across multiple languages and thousands of studies. So it's a lot of research that goes behind this. And the science of reading really is ultimately about evidence-based practices and strategies that ensure that we're ensuring proficient reading with our students so that they are successful. Our next step was then to disseminate the information out to the staff in a variety of ways. So we did that through a lot of after-school professional development that was available to staff and administrators. We targeted training also to Title LAP and resource teachers and paraprofessionals, so they were coming along. Additionally, we created a resource online that's a live resource. We're continually adding information in there that is about the science of reading and has different information, articles, podcasts, websites, different things, webinars that staff can explore independently on their own and grow their knowledge. This past summer, we did train all the administrators about the science of reading at ALA and the research behind it, and then gave them the opportunity to use that information to take it back to their staff. So we're continually kind of feeding information out there, so we're starting at a different place for our adoption. Finally, I do want to point out, as we had the sharing from the study also is supported by the evidence-based research practices and science of reading, so that really has moved us along the way in our knowledge about what's important to do for our students for reading. But also a few years before that, we started our focus on foundational skills, and that was based on that research. So we aren't starting, at ground zero. We really have started a few years ago moving in the direction. So the second question, I think I'm still good. How am I doing, Troy? Okay, so kind of what are we doing for our adoption process? We have mapped out, we have a roadmap that includes 4 phases that we'll go through over the next about 2.5 years is what it will take. Our first phase began with the building of knowledge, as I just talked about. We'll continue that building of knowledge all the way through all of our phases. There's so much to learn about and lots of information. We will continue to do that through the 2 years. I am excited to say that today the application went out to solicit committee members. It went out in the honeycomb, so those of you that are here and haven't heard that can maybe send that out. We are looking for a diverse representation of all of our stakeholders, P through 5. We want people from all those grade levels. We want interventionists. We want special education. We want people that have experience with ethnic studies, social studies, science, all of that, to be part of our group. So we really are ensuring that we're representing as much diverse representation there. Our phase 2 will begin in January when we actually get to bring the committee together. Our main task with that group through June will be to create a selection criteria that we can use to identify the literacy materials that are high quality and support all teachers and ensure that students become successful readers. There are tools online that we'll use from OSPI. Also through EdReports, we have a variety of tools to kind of look through and kind of build our criteria for what we're looking for that will meet our needs and help us narrow down from all the curriculums out there, the very best to the best couple, 2, 3 maybe, that we're going to look further in. So phase 3 will begin next fall. During that phase, we'll do a deeper analysis of the components, and we'll have the opportunities for committee members to field test the curriculum in their classrooms. That deeper analysis and experience will help guide our recommendation for the adoption. And then finally, once we have an approved approved curriculum, the adoption committee will then work on the implementation plan, which will really be another probably 2-year plan on how we do that well. And just like AR was sharing, Allison was sharing, it's not just about getting the materials, it's also the support on how to do it well. And so that will be part of our plan. So thank you. Did I answer the questions okay?
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Our last questions are for Amy. Please share with us what you see teachers doing differently now as compared to 10 years ago. What results are you seeing? What challenges are we facing?
Thank you so much. Well, as you know, we've gone kind of back and forth in reading instruction over the years. We started, we did some whole language. We were hooked on phonics for a while. We kind of slid back to balanced literacy. I can remember when I started my career in first grade, some of the strategies that we were using when it was like magic. You would look at those words, and I can remember saying, and then the word will just pop out of your mouth. There wasn't a whole lot of science behind that. We looked at the pictures a lot, and we did a lot of different things. And now we're more focused on how children learn to read and are providing a much more systematic and explicit instruction in the components of reading than I think we ever have before. We know that students need to be able to link the sounds of words together with the symbols on the page in order to become proficient readers. As we heard Allison talk about earlier, it's important that students are receiving daily instruction in those reading foundational skills, including phonemic awareness, phonics, reading fluency, and they're also working with vocabulary and comprehension as well. And we know that students need to be able to read skillfully before they can think deeply about what they have read. Teachers are now looking at data on a real regular basis through the MTSS process, and they're identifying those students who may need additional supports. This may include pre-teaching, as we heard earlier, an upcoming lesson, or working to fill in gaps in letter-sound relationships. We also know that some students need many more repetitions and practice before cementing some of these phonemic awareness and phonics skills, and we are working to provide interventions and additional time for those students to engage in this practice. Gone are the days of spelling tests and memorizing word lists or guessing the word by looking at the picture. Instruction is now more focused on those letter-sound relationships, how to apply them when both reading and writing, which is leading to greater understanding when reading. Through this, we are seeing students develop a much stronger foundation base both in reading and writing. Instead of simply knowing a prescribed set of memorized words, students are learning the skills to decode unknown words with familiar parts and create the words they need when writing. They're developing the ability to problem solve when encountering unfamiliar words or use skills such as their knowledge of prefixes and suffixes to create new words. Students have a stronger ability to read and manipulate words on their own rather than simply waiting for an adult to jump in and support, which we used to see quite a bit. Some of the challenge that we're seeing, this one is going to sound super familiar, attendance. Although attendance is getting better, absences we know greatly hurt instruction. When our students aren't there, it hurts, and they're missing that quality instruction that they're being provided. The other thing that is impacted is personnel. It takes some small group structures to provide this more explicit instruction and interventions, and finding those folks to do this can be difficult at times. It takes creativity and scheduling, and sometimes we rely on volunteers to help as well. And on the flip side of that, at times we have some students who come to us who already have a really firm base in those foundational skills and don't need to engage in quite as much foundational preparation. So we are finding time, space, and appropriate materials to keep these students moving forward. And again, that takes thought and some out-of-the-box thinking.
Thank you, Amy. Now we'll move to our discussion time, and I will turn this over to Director Dave Newkirk.
So thank you, Tiffany, and the panel. Can we please give a round of applause? So at this time, we're going to invite the panelists to go back to your tables so we can do the table talk. So in your handouts, you guys have cards, and they all have questions on them. The 4 questions are, what did you hear that you find encouraging? What did you wonder about? What feedback or input do you have? And do you have any questions? Or what did we miss? What would you like to see more of? That's where we can put it for what did you have questions for. So each table has a designated facilitator. They'll take the notes down. And the idea is to take all the notes and grab some ideas from your actual tables, and at the end share those. We have plenty of time. We're way ahead of schedule, so I do think we'll have time to do that at the end. So we got about 30, 35 minutes to start talking about the different questions, and then at the end we'll break. I'll give you a 5-minute warning, and then we'll break off, and we'll ask each table to share something that they thought was encouraging from our discussions today. Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, let's go. We got about 35 minutes. I'll give you a 5-minute warning. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to walk around with a microphone. It would be great to go to every table and just share one very encouraging thing like one outcome from your guys' discussion. So we'll start right here with this table, table number 5, and just work our way around.
Well, our table had a great discussion around each of the questions. The one that I would share with everyone was the importance of our teachers who are title intervention or special education being included in the professional development and the support to core instruction. That was something that was talked about, that's very important, and at the point where the adoption is completed, they need to be a part of that decision and a part of the process, provided the same materials and professional development.
Great point, great point. All right, we'll come over here. Ms. Grubbs.
We realized that we need representation from military families on our curriculum adoption committee, because with all the moves that kids make, there are often gaps in their literacy. So we want to make sure we attend to that population as well.
Yeah, don't. What y'all doing? What y'all doing? You taking my job? No, actually, I wanted to highlight that's a good point, because they also bring different perspectives. They may have something that works in another district that they can bring in. You're like, oh, that worked out great here. Why can't you guys adopt something like that? So bringing in military perspective is very important.
We really appreciated focusing on evidence-based practices. We especially appreciated our strong community partners. So we're not doing this alone. There's a lot of wonderful things happening promoting reading within the community. And then we also appreciate when Amy acknowledged that we haven't always done the best things that were the most conducive to reading, and that's okay, and it's all right to say that. And we know a little bit more now, and we can move forward from there.
Great. All right, this table over here.
A lot of the same themes. In addition, we had a pretty robust discussion around how the MTSSR is going to coincide with the adoption and the integration between that, what we're going to learn from that, and is it going to inform some of it, and then what does that look like after the materials are adopted? How do we go back then and ensure that the MTSS system is really robust at all of our schools, incorporating our new curriculum effectively?
All right, who's the facilitator here? Oh, there she is. She's hiding. Amy?
Something that we found encouraging was the data looks like it's moving in the right direction post-COVID, so that felt like a glimmer of hope. And we also were really excited about the fact that we're part of this study and really diving into the science of reading and supporting teachers moving forward. And then everything else everybody else said too.
Nice. Thank you. Ms. Johnson, I'm guessing you're the facilitator?
Ditto with what everyone else has said, but also really emphasizing the resources our community provides. How do we get the information out to our families about the South Sound Reading Foundation and Timberland Library? And then also we're wondering, what will the teacher support look like? Once the adoption occurs, or even actually before the adoption occurs, because there needs to be lots of PD with our instructional staff, our paraeducators. And what does that coaching support look like? Coaching support really needs to occur real time, side by side during the day. And with the few coaches that we have, what will that look like as we move forward?
Troy, you're the last. Best table for last, I'm just saying.
Yeah, the difficulty with that is I don't know much that our table talked about that hasn't been said. So we, much like Karen talked about here, is we were really impressed with this group, with the amount of support from Timberland Regional Library, South Sound Reading Foundation, how they can provide for community. And much like Karen says, how do we get that information to the community? We talked about how do we make sure our teachers know those resources are available. And then we had a wonder of what else is out there that maybe we don't know about that we could continue to learn about. And then finally, the science of reading and our acknowledgement and the stuff that Amy talked about and how important that will be as we lead into an adoption process to make sure we end up with an outcome that is really solid and best for our students and our community.
Awesome. That's great input for everybody. And we will have a debrief on this on Thursday, and we'll be sharing the results from everybody as well. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Dr. Jennifer Thomas for our closing remarks.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our presenters, our panelists, everyone here today. I cannot begin to tell you, and I'll speak on behalf of the board when I say this, how important these community conversations are to us, to be able to listen, to learn, and to understand several different perspectives and diverse perspectives. So we appreciate you very much for being here and being very willing to share what your thoughts and experiences are. Just a couple of things. I love this because I'm a data freak, so thank you, Dr. Gandhi, for presenting data. And then also just for sharing what we're doing, as far as what the study looks like moving forward. And then also a couple of things. I'm going to speak from my own lived experiences in order to avoid any generalizations. Being a military family of 24 years, my kids went to 4 elementary schools. And so I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. Public library, I want to let you know that even though, we were in 4 different elementary schools, the public library was our spot. Every single duty station we were at. That was where we formed community. That was where their love for reading came. And that is where we brought our other 2 kids when they came and were adopted from the Philippines to the library, so that this way they found a love for books as well. So thank you for all that you do. And South Sound Reading Foundation, we were talking in our group like, wow, you're all up in the community. And then you're there at milestones like when somebody gives birth, like from the second they enter the world. So yay, that's so awesome. All right. So a couple of things moving forward. We are going to meet as a board. We're going to review the information that was gathered tonight. And then we're going to talk about it, and we're going to make a determination based off of everything that was gathered, all the information gathered, everything that we heard and listened to, and then just all of the experiences that were put together. And then we're going to direct the superintendent, Dr. Clemens, on the next steps on the future of this work and what we would like to see moving forward. And that will be released. So thank you again for being here. Grab a plate on your way out and drive safe. Thank you.